The night air hummed with the rhythm of the city, a soft, distant vibration of engines, street chatter, and the constant pulse of ambition. Lagos was never quiet, never still, never asleep. And on the rooftop of their small office in Yaba, two young architects stood shoulder to shoulder, gazing at the skyline that they swore would one day bear their signature. Dealey folded his arms against the warm breeze. One day, Amara, one day, we're going to build something that lasts longer than our names. Amara lifted her chin slightly, the corners of her mouth curving in that familiar, determined way. We already started, Dealey. Ascend Design is more than a firm. It's our story. Their story. Two dreamers who had met as university rivals, then reluctantly became partners during a particularly brutal architectural competition. Their combined design, sustainable, bold, and daring, had won first place. Their victory had turned into a collaboration, and the collaboration slowly into something deeper. Dealey never said it out loud, but he always felt that their dreams were stitched together, as though if she ever walked away, the entire fabric of his future would collapse. Amara didn't say it out loud either, but she knew it was true. In the tiny office below, Ascend Design's single employee was still typing proposals. Their laptops were borrowed, their furniture was cheap, but their dreams, those were priceless. The government had just announced the opening of bids for the city's landmark project, the Skypath Tower, a towering monument meant to redefine the skyline. Every world-class firm wanted it. Every architect dreamed of winning it. But Dealey had said with absolute conviction, "We're entering." And when he believed something, Amara believed it too. They clinked plastic cups of cheap champagne. "To the future," she said. "To our future," he corrected softly. Her smile deepened, but she didn't correct him. Not yet. 2 weeks later, the shadow entered their lives in the form of a man who walked into their office with the quiet force of someone who never heard the word no. Marcus Thorne, CEO of Thorne Industries, billionaire, a man with ice in his stare and storms in his silence. He was the kind of man whose presence made rooms smaller, air thinner, and people more obedient. "Miss Nwasu," he said to Amara, ignoring Dealey completely, "your work on the sustainable cohesion model is exquisite." Amara stiffened. "Thank you, sir, but it's a collaborative." "Your work," he repeated, as though he were correcting a child. Dealey's jaw tightened. Thorne placed a folder on their conference table, a sleek folder with a silver crest embossed at the corner. Inside it, the Skypath Tower project brief, the skyscraper. Dealey inhaled sharply. How did Thorne get access? Thorne leaned back casually. "I have influence in the right circles, influence and interest." He turned fully to Amara. "You, Miss Nwasu, have a design sensibility that this city desperately needs. Creative yet disciplined, uncompromising in vision. You understand structures, but you also understand people. That combination is rare." Dealey stepped forward. "We work together." Thorne didn't even shift his gaze. "I wasn't speaking to you." A cold anger washed over Dealey, but Amara touched his arm gently, a quiet plea not to escalate. Thorne continued, "Ascend Design is too small, too inexperienced, and too financially weak to win the Skypath Tower contract alone." He let the words sink in like poison. "But you, Miss Nwasu, do not have to lose because your partner is holding you back." Dealey flinched. Amara's throat tightened. "Sir, with all due respect." He raised a hand. "I am not here to negotiate with pride. I am here to offer destiny." He reached into his coat pocket and placed a velvet box on the table. Amara stared at it. Dealey's pulse thundered in his ears. Thorne opened it. A diamond ring, large, cold, glittering like a shard of ice. "This is not a marriage proposal," Thorne said smoothly. "Not yet. I am still legally married, but I am dissolving that marriage. My advisors refer to my next partnership as a second wife arrangement. Call it what you want. Dealey felt bile rise in his throat. Thorne pushed the ring towards Amara. My offer is simple. Become my partner professionally and personally, and you will become the next CEO of Thorne Industries within 5 years. You will lead the Skypath Tower project. You will have the power to reshape this city. He paused. But I require one condition. A chill swept over the room. You will need to dissolve your current attachment. His eyes shifted briefly, the tiniest glance toward Dealey. And you must publicly discredit your firm and your partner. It will make your rise cleaner. Amara's breath caught. Destroy Dealey, destroy Ascend. Why? Because loyalty to weakness is the death of ambition. Silence. The kind of silence that changes lives. Thorne stood to leave. You have 72 hours to decide. But understand this. He paused at the door. Opportunities like this do not wait for guilt to fade. And then he was gone. The door closed behind Marcus Thorne and the room seemed to shrink. Amara's breath was shallow. Dealey could see her mind spiraling. Amara, he whispered. She didn't look at him. He wants me, she said numbly. He wants me for the project, for the company, for himself, Dealey snapped. He wants to use you. She flinched. He ran a hand through his hair. This is Thorne. He's a predator. He sees you're brilliant and he wants to own that brilliance. Amara swallowed hard. But he's right about one thing. Ascend is small. We've been struggling for months to keep the lights on. We'll figure it out, Dealey insisted. We always do. She finally turned to him, eyes glassy. Dealey, what if this is the opportunity I've been waiting for? The chance to lead something real, something monumental, something worth destroying everything else for, he finished, voice cracking. She looked away. Dealey stepped closer, heart thundering. Amara, we built Ascend together. We dreamed of Skypath Tower together. Don't let him poison that. Her voice trembled. He's offering me CEO. I would be running one of the most powerful firms on the continent. I could. You could lose yourself, Dealey said softly, and lose us. That stopped her. The unspoken truth, their connection, the love that lived in the quiet spaces between them, hung heavily in the air. She looked at him then, really looked, as though weighing her heart against her ambition. Don't make me choose, she whispered. Dealey stepped back as though struck. I'm not making you choose, he is. The next several days were agonizing. Amara avoided him, lost in thought. Dealey tried to continue their work, but everything felt hollow. Every blueprint was a ticking clock. On the third night, she didn't come to the office. She didn't answer his calls. She didn't respond to his messages. Dealey already knew. But he still hoped he was wrong. The event was broadcast live, Thorne Industries' annual gala, a glamorous, high-profile gathering of the elite. Dealey watched from a cheap television in the office as Marcus Thorne stepped onto the golden-lit stage, holding the hand of a woman in a sleek emerald gown. Sorry. Amara. She looked breathtaking, but her eyes looked hollow. Cameras flashed, champagne bubbled, the crowd murmured in shock. Thorne lifted her hand higher. I would like to introduce the future CEO of Thorne Industries, he said proudly, and my future second wife, Miss Amara Nwasu. Cheers erupted. Dealey felt the world tilt. A reporter shouted, what about her former firm, the allegations? Thorne gave a cold smile. Miss Nwasu has courageously exposed the truth. Ascend Design was built on fraudulent practices. Her former partner manipulated project data, inflated cost reports, and attempted to submit forged documents for the Skypath proposal. Dealey froze. What? Reporters erupted with questions. Amara stepped forward, voice steady but eyes glassy. I confirmed the allegations. I regret my involvement, but I am committed to integrity going forward. The room exploded with noise. Dealey felt something inside him shatter so violently he could barely breathe. Amara had said the words, had signed the affidavit, had chosen not just to leave, but to destroy him. He staggered back from the screen, gripping the table as the world blurred. A cold, heavy weight settled in his chest. Shame, heartbreak, disbelief. Ascend Design collapsed within hours. Clients withdrew. Investors vanished. His license was suspended pending inquiry. By midnight, the office was empty. By dawn, Dealey was gone. No one knew where. The coastal town Dealey disappeared into was small, quiet, and utterly indifferent to the skyscrapers and betrayals of Lagos. He rented a single room in a fisherman's house. He shaved his beard. He cut his hair. He walked the shoreline for hours, letting the waves swallow pieces of his pain. But the wound remained. His reputation gone. His company gone. His dreams gone. And the woman he had trusted above all else gone. But he did not drown. He rebuilt. He studied. He volunteered for community housing initiatives. He met leaders passionate about sustainable development. He learned. He connected. He grew. 5 years later, Dealey stood taller, stronger, and more certain than he had ever been. He founded the Phoenix Trust, a consortium dedicated to rebuilding communities, creating affordable housing, and reclaiming neglected urban spaces. He did not seek fame. He did not seek vengeance. But he made one quiet vow, whispered into the silence of the sea. My success will be my only revenge. 5 years later, the estate felt colder than the day Amara first stepped into it. Thorne's mansion sprawled across the secluded estate like a monument to excess: marble halls, crystal chandeliers, gilded staircases, art pieces worth more than entire neighborhoods. It sparkled, impressed, intimidated, but warmth was something money couldn't buy. Amara walked the hallways in silence, the soft click of her heels echoing off polished floors. Every surface gleamed. Every flower was perfectly arranged. Every room smelled faintly of cedar and the expensive perfume Thorne's housekeeper sprayed every morning. She lived in luxury. She slept in silk. She dined on meals curated by Michelin-trained chefs. But the truth was simple. She was not free. Marcus Thorne watched everything: what she wore, whom she spoke to, how she smiled in public, how often she posted on social media, even the tone of her voice during meetings. Manipulation wasn't loud with him. It was subtle, smooth, suffocating. You must always present strength, he would say. Weakness is beneath you, beneath us. Amara learned to smile the way he wanted, walk the way he liked, and speak the way he approved. Every time she wore the diamond ring he gave her, the second wife ring, she felt its weight like a chain. Yet the world envied her. They saw a beautiful woman on the arm of a billionaire. They saw power, prestige, influence. They didn't see the nights she cried quietly on the bathroom floor. They didn't see the hollowness growing behind her eyes. They didn't see the one name she could never speak without swallowing pain. Dealey. She had tried to bury that ghost years ago. But guilt is not soil. It refuses to let the past rest. At Thorne Industries, Amara was the face of sustainability, the polished executive who carried Thorne's new green innovation agenda. She attended board meetings, shook hands with ministers, reviewed proposals, and traveled with Thorne as his almost wife. But the title she truly wanted, first wife, always dangled just beyond reach. Thorne's divorce had dragged on for years. Selina Thorne, his estranged wife, was a brilliant environmental lawyer, soft-spoken but relentless, and she was standing between Amara and everything she had sacrificed for. Selina is exhausting, Thorne complained during one late-night strategy dinner as he swirled his wine. "She's still fighting me over that useless land by the industrial district." Amara stiffened. "The one near the low-income communities." Thorne nodded. "It's barely worth the taxes, completely underperforming. She insists it has community ecological value." "Nonsense. I'm selling it." Amara frowned. "Selling who would want it?" "Developers who understand potential," he replied with a thin smile. "Or idiots who don't know its limitations." Amara sensed he wasn't telling her everything. He rarely did. "But once the sale is finalized," Thorne said, leaning back, "Selina loses her last legal grip. The divorce wraps up. Then you, my dear Amara, become my first wife." Her chest tightened. Everything she had clawed her way up for, everything she betrayed for, was so close. Yet Thorne's smile unsettled her. What had she become to want this so badly? The next morning, Amara entered her office and found the sealed bid documents for the industrial land sale. She was responsible for overseeing the entire process. Thorne trusted her with high-stakes operations, but always with one caveat. He trusted her because he controlled her. She flipped through the applicants. A private developer from Cape Town. A foreign real estate firm. A local investor association. A phantom group submitting a last-minute bid, known only as the Phoenix Trust. Amara blinked. Something about the name unsettled her. Phoenix, rebirth, rising from ashes. A tug in her chest. But she brushed it aside. Over the next week, she conducted due diligence, cross-checked applications, and prepared the sealed bidding session. Thorne wanted the sale swift and unquestioned. "Once it's sold," he'd said, "every trace of Selina's interference disappears." But that night, as Amara reviewed old files, old dreams she once held, she stumbled across something buried deep in her archived folders. A blueprint. Her blueprint. Ascend Design, abandoned sustainable housing project, meant to be built on that very land. Her breath caught. The designs, the green community planning, the solar matrix, the water recycling system. It all came rushing back. This land was never useless. It was a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the city's poorest communities. Her heartbeat accelerated. Why would Thorne want to sell such land? What game was he really playing? The boardroom was tense during the final bid opening. The board members murmured, reporters stood waiting, and Thorne sat at the head of the table like a sovereign holding court. Amara opened each sealed envelope one by one. Bid 1, rejected for insufficient backing. Bid 2, rejected due to financing inconsistencies. Bid 3, competitive but low. Then she opened the last one. The Phoenix Trust. The offer was significantly higher, but not predatory, just enough to be compelling. Smart, strategic, and oddly ethical. Thorne's eyes gleamed. Excellent, sell it. Amara hesitated. Shouldn't we review their background first? Thorne raised a brow. I didn't ask for your opinion. Finalize the sale by tomorrow. Her pulse spiked. He never let her question him. But this time she needed answers. Marcus, who exactly is this Phoenix Trust? A non-profit, he said carelessly. Some bleeding heart redevelopers trying to save the world. They'll fail. But we take their money and Selina loses her last foothold. Everybody wins. Everybody except the community, except the workers, except the person she once was. That night, she stared at the Phoenix Trust logo on her screen. A rising bird. A symbol for the reborn. And for the first time in years, she felt her heart whisper a name she had tried to erase. Dealey. Ridiculous. Impossible. He was gone. Lost, disgraced, erased. Still, schedule a meeting, she told her assistant. I want to meet the head of the Phoenix Trust before finalizing the sale. The next morning, her car pulled up in front of a renovated warehouse on the edge of town. It was nothing like the glass tower she had grown accustomed to. But it was beautiful. Warm wood, solar panels glinting in the sun, a community garden by the entrance, children drawing chalk sketches on the sidewalk, workers laughing as they carried supplies inside. It felt alive, the opposite of Thorne's lifeless estate. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. Inside, she was directed to a large open studio filled with models, blueprints, sustainability prototypes, and collaborative workspaces. A man stood with his back to her, studying a layout spread across a drafting table. Tall, steady, familiar in a way that punched the air from her lungs. Her breath caught. "Excuse me," she said softly. The man turned, and Amara felt her world freeze. It was him. Dealey. Older, broader shoulders, sharper jawline, a controlled strength in his posture, a calmness in his eyes she had never seen before. But those eyes recognized her instantly. She whispered barely audible, "Dealey." His expression did not soften. "Miss Nwasu," he replied, voice steady. "Welcome to the Phoenix Trust." Amara swallowed, gripping her folder tightly. You're the head of the trust." "I built it," he said. Her knees nearly buckled. "Dealey. Alive. Thriving. Reborn." He wasn't a failure. He wasn't destroyed. He had risen like the name of his consortium, from the ashes she helped create. She stepped forward. "Dealey, I assume you're here to finalize Thorne's land sale," he cut in. His tone was professional, detached, a world away from the man who once shared dreams with her on a dim rooftop. Amara felt a sting. "Yes, but I didn't know it was you." "No," he said quietly, "you never did." She winced. He gestured to the blueprint. "This land isn't for profit, it's for them." She followed his gaze to the children's drawings, the community garden, the housing model. Recognition hit her like a storm. "These designs," she whispered, "are Ascend," Dealey finished, "our old project." Her breath trembled. "You kept it." "No," he said, meeting her eyes, "I rebuilt it." She felt shame rise like a tide. "I didn't come here to fight you," he said. "I came here to stop Marcus Thorne." Amara stiffened. "Stop him from selling the land." "From destroying the city," Dealey said. "That land is worthless to him, but what he didn't tell you is this." He picked up a document and placed it gently in front of her. Amara read it, and her heart nearly stopped. "The government has approved a $5 billion infrastructure project," she whispered, "and the only barrier is this land." Dealey nodded. "If Thorne sells it, he escapes liability. If he keeps it, his stock collapses under the environmental injunction his wife filed. Either way, he's cornered." Her voice shook. "Marcus, he never told me." "He didn't need to," Dealey said softly. "He only needed you to deliver the one thing he couldn't get without you." Amara's blood ran cold. "What thing?" Dealey looked at her with sorrow, not anger. "The loophole," he whispered. "The sustainability expertise. The city planning clause only you understood. You weren't a cherished second wife, Amara." He stepped closer. "You were a pawn." "No," Dealey said gently. "He built it on your ambition. The lie was using your brilliance as a shield against his crimes." She squeezed her eyes shut as fresh tears slipped down. "You never needed him, Amara," Dealey added quietly. "He needed you." When she looked up again, her eyes shimmered with guilt, with anger, with a dawning understanding of the enormity of her mistake. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. "You should hate me." Dealey's expression softened, not with forgiveness, but with something deeper. "I did hate you," he admitted softly. "For years I hated what you did, what you said, how easily you walked away." She flinched. But I never hated you, he said, because I knew the girl who stood beside me on that rooftop. She wasn't the woman who betrayed me. His gaze held hers. She wasn't the woman who became Marcus Thorne's shadow. Something fragile in her heart trembled. And now, she asked. Now, Dealey said, stepping back, I'm telling you because you deserve to know the truth, and because the only person who can stop Marcus before he destroys that community is you. Her breath caught. Her shame burned. But beneath both, something else stirred. Purpose. Amara placed her hand on the model of the sustainable housing project, their dream from another lifetime. The tiny solar grids, vertical gardens, eco-pathways. It felt surreal, like touching a ghost. Why bring this back now? She whispered. Because it was always the right thing, Dealey said. Because I refused to let the best part of our work die. Because that land was meant for people, not corporations. Amara blinked back tears. How did you survive, Dealey, after everything? He paused, hands resting in his pockets. I didn't, he said simply. Not at first. Losing Ascend broke something in me. Losing you broke more. She looked away, pain rising like a tide. But you rebuilt yourself, she murmured. I had to, he said, because when everything is stripped away, you either become the ashes or the phoenix. He turned back to the blueprints. And I chose to rise. Her throat tightened at the echo of the trust's name. You became everything we dreamed of, she whispered. No, he said softly. We were supposed to become this, but you chose a different path. Amara's voice shook. I thought I was choosing success. And you did, he replied, just not happiness. His words landed like truth she had been running from for years. They stood in silence. The warehouse buzzed with quiet productivity, workers transporting materials, engineers discussing models, volunteers tending to the garden outside. Life, purpose, community, everything her world with Marcus lacked. Dealey, she finally said, if I refuse to sell the land, Marcus will destroy me. He already has, Dealey said gently. Her breath hitched. You think you're safe because you're living in a mansion, he continued. But Amara, you're drowning in a golden cage. She closed her eyes. He watches your every move, Dealey said. He dictates your life, your image, your position. You're not his partner, you're his project. Her eyes opened, wet, angry. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. He's charming to the world, but behind closed doors. She stopped. Amara, Dealey said softly, you don't need to explain, I know that look. Her lips trembled. For 5 years, she had been suffocating, and just hearing someone acknowledge the truth felt like breathing for the first time. I want out, she whispered, but I don't know how. You do, he said, you always have. Their eyes locked. And in that moment, Amara saw herself reflected not as she was, but as she once had been. Strong, brilliant, fearless, and maybe redeemable. Dealey reached under the drafting table and pulled out a large envelope. This, he said, handing it to her, is the original blueprint package for our sustainable housing project. She stared at it as though it were a piece of her heart she thought had died. He continued, I've spent 5 years refining it, updating it, strengthening it, but the foundation is yours. She touched the envelope with trembling fingers. Why give this to me? His voice softened. Because my revenge was never about destroying you, Amara. It was proving that ambition means nothing unless it creates redemption. Her breath stilled. His gaze gentled. And because the only person who can stop Marcus, the only person who understands the land's true value, is you. Amara's vision blurred. Dealey. He shook his head. This isn't about us, he said quietly. This is about the city, the people, the truth. Amara looked down at the envelope again, then up at him. "Tell me what I have to do." Dealey walked her through the legal plan. "Selena Thorne's injunction is valid," he said, "but she needs proof the land contains ecological and social value." Amara nodded. "And these designs, the sustainable model, qualify as exactly that." "Yes," Dealey said. "If she files these, Marcus can't sell the land. His board will panic, stock will crash, and his empire collapses." "And so does my position," Amara murmured. Dealey met her eyes. "Then you'll finally be free." Her breath trembled. "Marcus won't just let me walk away." Dealey's voice softened. "You're not alone, not anymore." Something in her chest cracked open. Hope. Slow, painful, unfamiliar, but real. She nodded. "I'll do it." Dealey watched her walk toward the door, the envelope close to her chest, her steps steadier than when she arrived. "Amara," he said softly. She turned back. "You're stronger than he thinks." A single tear slipped down her cheek. "And you're kinder than I deserve," she replied. She left. The door closed behind her. And Dealey exhaled slowly, knowing this was only the beginning of the storm. The hum of the plane seemed to settle into a steady rhythm as Jaiduri stared out through the oval window, the clouds soft and thick like pulled cotton. Somewhere below, Lagos crawled with life, engines and voices, ambition and regret, all layered on top of each other. But up here it was quiet, too quiet. He rubbed a hand over his face, exhausted from holding himself together for too long. A flight attendant paused beside him. "Sir, would you like anything to drink?" He lifted his eyes to her and attempted a small smile. "Water, please." She nodded politely and moved off, leaving him with the heavy truth that no drink could soothe. He had spent years building an empire out of precision and emotional distance, only to be undone by the one person he had allowed in. Amara. The name alone felt like a bruise he kept pressing, a pain he couldn't stop reliving. When the water came, he didn't drink it. He just held the bottle, staring at the condensation gathering along its surface. His hands, steady even in the tensest boardroom battles, trembled. Before he could pull himself together, his phone buzzed. He shouldn't have looked. He didn't want to look. But he did. A message. From her. "Amara, we need to talk, before it's too late." He exhaled shakily, chest tightening. Too late for what? Forgiveness. Closure. The version of them that could have survived without lies. He didn't know. He only knew he wasn't ready. But wasn't running exactly what had put them here. Before he could decide, the pilot's voice came overhead, calm and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about 100 miles out from Abuja. We'll begin our descent shortly." He looked out the window again. The sky was dimming, the day slipping away. Just like them. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow, he would face everything. Tomorrow he would. He never finished the thought. Because tomorrow arrived sooner than expected. Jaiduri was still unpacking in his Abuja hotel when there came a knock, soft, familiar, and carrying a kind of hesitation he knew too well. He froze. No, it couldn't be. He opened the door. It was her. Amara. Wearing no makeup, hair pulled back, eyes swollen like she'd been crying long before she got on whatever flight brought her here. For a moment they simply stood there, breathing in each other's presence. Her voice was a whisper. "Jide." He swallowed hard. "Amara, why are you here?" She stepped inside without waiting to be invited. It was instinctive, like entering a house she used to live in. He closed the door behind her, pulse racing. "You left," she said softly. "You didn't even give me a chance to explain." He let out a strained laugh. "Explain what? That you hid the truth about Emeka, That you let me stand beside him, shake his hand, while knowing. Her head dropped. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have told you from day one, but I was ashamed. He stared at her, stunned. Of what? What? She lifted her eyes again, exhausted, raw. Of who I used to be. I was afraid that if you knew anything about that version of my life, you wouldn't want me. Jide's breath caught in his chest. All this time, all the silence, all the distance, built on fear, not betrayal. But you still lied, he said quietly, struggling to keep the pain from ringing through his voice. You let me believe I was building a future with someone who trusted me enough to be honest. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I didn't know how to tell you. The business, your reputation, your standards. You were this unstoppable force, Jide, and I felt like a complication you didn't need. He turned away, packing to the window, the Abuja skyline glittering outside like a city made of broken promises. I needed you, he whispered. I never needed perfect. There was silence behind him. When he finally turned back, she looked like someone breaking quietly. Jide, she said softly, we don't have to end like this. He shook his head slowly. I don't know how to go back. Amara took a step closer. Then we don't go back, we start over. His breath faltered. She moved another step. I'm not asking for your forgiveness tonight, or even tomorrow. I want you to know the full story, everything I was scared to tell you. He hesitated. The weight of his hurt pressed against the possibility of healing. Finally, he nodded once. Tell me. Amara sank into the sofa, twisting her fingers nervously. It started 5 years ago, she began quietly. Back when I first moved back to Lagos, Emeka offered me a job, one I desperately needed at the time. I was still rebuilding my life after everything. He didn't interrupt. He could feel the tremor in her voice. He wasn't always terrible, she said. Not at first. Then he started asking for more control. My movements, my relationships, my goals, my work. I was too afraid to leave. Too ashamed to admit I'd gotten trapped again. Jide's jaw clenched. Again. She had never told him that part either. When I met you, she continued, I saw someone who valued strength, discipline, integrity. I didn't want you to see me as someone who let herself get trapped by a man like Emeka. He exhaled, tension softening around the edges. Then, why didn't you leave him immediately when we started seeing each other? She wiped her cheeks. I did leave, but he didn't accept it. He kept showing up, making threats, not physical, just enough to make me afraid. And when you two eventually crossed paths through business, I panicked. She took a deep breath. I wasn't trying to protect him, Jide. I was trying to protect myself. And maybe I was trying to protect the version of me I wanted you to see. The room felt charged with quiet electricity. He sat heavily on the opposite couch. Why didn't you tell me any of this? He asked again. Her answer was simple. Because I loved you too early. His heart stuttered painfully. And because I loved you that early, she continued, voice trembling, I wasn't ready to lose you to the truth. She wasn't lying. He could see it, feel it, and that made everything hurt even more. For a while they sat in silence, two hearts bruised by the weight of unlived truths. Eventually Jide spoke. Amara, I don't hate you, I never could, but trust is not something I can rebuild overnight, not after this, not after everything it cost. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. I understand. He wished she would fight him, beg him, promise him something impossible. But she didn't. She respected the boundary he placed between them, even though it cut her too. He stood, walking toward the door. She understood without being told. It was time. She picked up her small carry-on. Her hands shook. Thank you for listening, she said quietly. He nodded. Thank you for telling me the truth. She stepped closer, just close enough for him to feel her warmth. This doesn't have to be goodbye, she whispered. Jide swallowed. It does for now. Her eyes glistened. For now, she repeated, voice barely audible. She hesitated for one last moment, and then she rose on her toes and kissed his cheek. Soft, reverent, heartbreaking. He closed his eyes. Then she walked out the door. He didn't stop her. He didn't call out. He let her go. Because sometimes love required distance. Sometimes love required honesty. And sometimes love required losing the person who mattered most to rediscover who you were without them. He stayed standing there for a long time after the door closed, listening to the silence they left behind. Abuja was behind him now. Lagos shimmered ahead. Jaiduri stepped out of the elevator into the lobby of his firm's new branch, sleek, modern, shaped by the lessons of the last half-year. He was different now. Calmer, clearer, whole in a way he hadn't been in years. He greeted staff, checked updates, signed documents. And then, a soft, familiar voice behind him. Jide. His breath caught. He turned. There she was. Amara. Healthier, stronger, radiantly herself. Their eyes met. 1,000 memories rushed in, but this time they didn't hurt. She held a small envelope in her hand. Congratulations on the new office, she said gently. I'm proud of you. Emotion tightened in his chest. Thank you. She smiled, warm but controlled. This wasn't a plea or a second attempt. This was closure offered with open palms. I'm leaving for Nairobi next week, she said. A new project, a fresh start. He nodded slowly. You deserve that. She took one step closer. I want you to know I'm okay now, really okay. I'm glad, he murmured, and he meant it. They stood in silence, no tension, no ache, just two people who once loved deeply, standing at the edge of different futures. Finally, she extended her hand. Goodbye, Jide. He took it, held it, let it go. Goodbye, Amara. She turned and walked away with the quiet dignity of someone who had learned her worth the hard way. He watched her until she disappeared through the glass doors. Then he breathed out, not in pain but in peace. Some endings were not punishments. Some endings were healings. And some were simply the honest truth of two hearts that loved, hurt, and grew, just not together. Jaiduri looked out over the Lagos skyline. A new day waited. And this time,